Tonight, the gates of time are silently opening. Here, far from the noise of the modern world, is a calm sanctuary where old stories slowly breathe. If this heavy rhythm and this dim light brings you a moment of peace, then gently press the like button. Do not think of it as a gesture. Think of it as leaving a small trace in the vastness of the night. And down below, tell me where you are listening from and what the hour is. It is strangely comforting to see people from different corners of the earth drifting into the quiet at the very same moment. So now, settle in. Let the room grow still. Let time wrap around you like a soft fabric. And allow this ancient tale to guide you to the shores of sleep. We begin. The oldest texts discovered beneath the sands of ancient Egypt do not speak of wars first. They speak of balance. They describe the universe as a delicate scale held between order and chaos. To the ancient mind, this balance was everything. They called it Ma'at. Ma'at is justice. It is truth. It is the cosmic harmony that guides the stars across the night sky and the river to the sea. Without Ma'at, the sun would not rise and the crops would not grow. But, opposing Ma'at, waiting in the shadows, is Isfet. Isfet is the unravelling of the world. It is confusion. It is disorder. It is the sudden, violent storms and the blinding winds that rise from the endless desert. History, for the Egyptians, is the eternal dance between these two forces, and in the world of the gods, this struggle is given a face in the great encounter between Horus and Set. But let us pause and look deeper, because this great war is not merely a myth about two gods fighting. It is a reflection of the deep fractures in the real history of Egyptian society. It mirrors the political rivalries, the geographical tensions between the fertile black land and the red desert. For historians and Egyptologists, this story is the cornerstone of state ideology. In the pyramid texts, written during the Old Kingdom, Horus and Set are not always enemies. They are referred to as Nebui, which translates to the two lords. They are opposing, yet complementary forces. Horus represents the order of the sky, the predictable rhythm of life. Set carries the wild, untamed power of the desert. They are the two separate sides of the universe. When the two are together, in balance, the integrity of Egypt is preserved. However, like every balance, this cosmic order has a fragile side. Before the conflict, there was a time of peace. At the center of this order sat Osiris. He was the king of Egypt's era of abundance and prosperity. The ancient texts describe the reign of Osiris with nostalgia. They call it a time when the lands were joyous and the rivers were fertile. Imagine a world where the Nile floods arrived exactly when needed, where the fields, covered in rich black silt, always brought new yields. People lived in a world ruled by absolute justice. Osiris's rule was the concrete form, the living example of the ideal kingdom. But perfection often invites its own destruction. Osiris had a brother, Set. In the beginning, Set was not purely a villain, nor just a god of chaos. If we look at his early iconography, we see a strong, protective figure. He was the guardian of the edges, the outer regions of Egypt, the distant ports, the borders that touched the unknown foreign lands, were under Set's influence. His power is harsh. It is like the desert storm that scours the stone. But this power is often necessary, because to protect order, sometimes a force opposing order, a force of raw strength, is required. Yet, something changed. The darkness inside Set began to grow and dominate. Sources tell us that Set's jealousy of Osiris accumulated over a long time. He watched as Osiris was loved by the people. He saw the praise given by the council of gods. This light surrounding his brother became a shadow, threatening Set's own existence. And finally, the moment arrived, the breaking point. Osiris is invited to the Delta region near the banks of the cool Nile for a great feast. The council had gathered. Gods and humans stood side by side. From the outside, everything looked like a celebration of peace. But inside Set's mind, the storm had already begun. The coffin texts, the oldest religious writings, describe this scene in detail. Set and his conspirators had prepared a trap, a sacred chest, beautifully crafted, adorned with precious materials. It was an object of desire, but it was built with a dark purpose. It was made to fit Osiris perfectly, neither too big nor too small, exact to the millimeter. When Osiris, trusting and unsuspecting, stepped inside, the lid slammed shut. Set sealed the chest, quickly and permanently. He pushed it into the currents of the Nile. The water took the king away. The Golden Age ended. The axis of the world shifted, and the long struggle for the throne of Egypt had officially begun. After the chest disappeared into the Nile, a heavy silence fell over Egypt. It was not the quiet of peace. It was the quiet of holding one's breath. The ancient texts tell us that the rhythm of the river changed. Without Osiris, the waters seemed to hesitate. The floods, which brought life to the black soil, lost their vigour. The fields, usually vibrant and green, began to turn a pale yellow under the relentless sun. The people felt it too. For the first time, the protective shadow of Ma'at felt thin. Shadows grew longer in the temples, and the wind from the desert felt sharper, carrying the scent of dust and uncertainty. Set was now the strongest power in the land, but his rule was not like his brothers. It was the rule of the storm, loud, unpredictable, and terrifying. But amidst this chaos, one heart refused to stop beating. Isis. She was not just a wife. She was the mistress of magic and the embodiment of patience. While the rest of Egypt mourned in fear, she moved. Her journey is described as a restless hope. Imagine her figure walking alone along the riverbanks, her feet sinking into the wet clay of the Nile, walking mile after mile under the starlight. She left the safety of the palaces. She walked through the papyrus thickets where the reeds whisper in the wind. She searched for the chest. She searched for the lost king. Her journey took her far beyond the borders of Egypt, following the currents of the sea all the way to the coast of Byblos. This detail is important. It reminds us that this story is also a map. It traces the ancient trade routes connecting the Nile to the cedar forests of the Levant. There, in a foreign land, washed ashore by the tides, she found him. The chest, silent and still. She brought him home. She brought the body back to the Delta, to a hidden place, away from Set's prying eyes. And here, one of the most mystical scenes in mythology unfolds. The wind stopped. The night was cool. Isis knelt beside the silent form of her husband. She did not use grand words. Instead, she transformed. In the iconography, we see her taking the form of a kite, a bird of prey. Listen closely to the image the texts give us. She spread her great wings over him, and she began to beat them, slowly at first, then with a steady rhythm. She was not just creating wind, she was creating breath. The movement of her wings stirred the stagnant air, forcing life back into the stillness. For a brief moment, death retreated. Osiris did not return to walk the earth forever. His destiny was now the underworld. But in that stolen moment of life, a future was created. Horus was conceived. Now, the danger was greater than ever. Set sat on the throne, his eyes watching everything. So Isis retreated further. She went deep into the papyrus swamps of the delta. Imagine a world of green and water, thick walls of reeds, twice the height of a man, blocking out the horizon. The air here is humid, thick with the smell of wet earth and life. Here, in the shadows, the true king was born, Horus, the one who is high. But he was not high yet. He was a child, vulnerable, small. While Set ruled with thunder and iron in the cities, the future of Egypt lay sleeping on a bed of woven reeds, floating on the water. The myth tells us that nature itself conspired to hide him. The scorpions, the snakes, the water spirits, they all stood guard. Egypt was divided. Above, the storm of Set raged. Below, in the quiet of the swamp, the seed of order waited to grow. And the people waited too, knowing, deep down, that the true king would one day rise from the reeds. Time flows differently in the legends. Years passed in the swamps of the delta. The boy, Horus, was no longer a child hiding in the reeds. He had grown. He had become the Avenger. The myth tells us that the day finally came to leave the shadows. Imagine the moment, leaving the cool, wet mud of the hiding place and stepping onto the dry, burning sands of Egypt. He was not alone. His mother, Isis, the mistress of strategy, walked beside him. They were not walking towards a battlefield, not yet. They were walking towards a court. They travelled to Heliopolis, the city of the sun, to the great hall of the Ennead, the council of gods. Here, the fate of the kingdom would be decided, not by blood, but by words, by law, and by the ancient rules of Ma'at. Let us visualize the great hall, rows of immense stone pillars stretching up into the darkness. The air is thick with the scent of incense and eternity. In the center sits Ra, the Lord of Light, the Creator. But the texts paint a very specific picture of Ra in this era. He is not the young, burning sun of the morning. He is old. His light is steady, but his eyes are heavy with the weight of millions of years. He is tired, and this fatigue shapes the destiny of the trial. He sits on the high throne, looking down at the two rivals standing before him. On one side, Horus, young, calm, carrying the silence of the swamps. On the other side, Set, the Lord of the Storm. His presence is loud, vibrating with raw power, like thunder trapped in a bottle. The silence of the hall breaks. Horus speaks first. His voice is not a shout. It is a statement of fact. My father, Osiris, was the king. I am his flesh. I am his blood. The throne is mine, by the laws of nature. This is the argument of legitimacy, the argument of order. Many gods nod in agreement. Shu, the god of air, and Thoth, the god of wisdom, stand with him. They see Ma'at in his eyes. But then, Set steps forward, and the atmosphere changes. He does not speak of laws, he speaks of reality. Horus is young, he says. He is soft. But I, Set points to the night sky. I slay the serpent, every single night. I stand at the prow of the sunboat. I am the only one strong enough to protect Ra from the darkness. This is the argument of necessity. Set claims that a king must be a warrior, that in a world of monsters, you need a monster to rule. The council is paralyzed. Ra, the aged king, looks at Set. He knows Set's violence, but he also knows Set's value. Without Set's strength, Who would fight the void? The gods whisper among themselves. The hall echoes with indecision. Is it law, or is it power, that should rule the world? This is not just a trial for a throne. It is a debate about the nature of existence. And so, the sun sets over Heliopolis. No judgment is passed. The shadows lengthen between the pillars, and everyone realizes this will not be a short trial. This is only the beginning of a struggle that will last for 80 years. The trial had lasted too long. Arguments, accusations, days turning into years. Ra, the aged sun god, grew weary of the endless debates, and he grew weary of Isis. Her magic, her whispers, her influence over the court disrupted the proceedings. So Ra made a decision. He ordered the court to move, not to a temple, but to a secluded place. The island in the middle. A strip of land surrounded by the deep flowing waters of the river. A place of isolation. He gave a strict command to the ferryman, a god named Nemti. Do not let any woman cross to the island, especially Isis. The order was given. The gods retreated to the island to eat, to rest, and to decide the fate of the world in silence. Isis was left behind on the riverbank, alone. But a closed door is merely an invitation for the mistress of magic. Isis did not fight the guards. She changed her form. The texts tell us she transformed into an old woman, bent back, dusty robes, walking slowly with a cane. She approached Nemti, the ferryman. He refused her passage, as ordered. But Isis offered him something that glittered in the sun, a golden ring. Greed is a universal language, even among gods. Nemti took the ring and rowed the old woman across the silent water. Once on the island, she found Set. He was resting, separated from the others. She did not attack him with weapons. She attacked him with a story. Still in her disguise, she told him a tale of a shepherd whose father had died, and a stranger who came to steal the cattle from the sun. She asked Set, "Who is in the right?" Set, blinded by his own arrogance, answered immediately. "The stranger is a thief," he said. "The cattle belong to the sun." At that moment, the air shimmered. The old woman vanished. Isis turned into a kite, a bird of prey, and flew up into the trees. Her voice echoed down to him. "You have judged yourself, Set. Your own mouth has spoken the truth." Set realized he had walked into a trap of his own making. Furious at being tricked, Set demanded a new contest. No more words, no more tricks. A test of pure, physical endurance. He proposed a challenge that only a creature of chaos could love. "Let us turn ourselves into hippopotamuses," he said. "We shall plunge into the depths of the Nile. Whoever can hold their breath the longest, whoever can stay submerged in the darkness, shall be king." Horus accepted. The two gods transformed. Imagine the scene. Two massive beasts, weighing tons, their skin thick and grey like wet stone. They slipped into the river. Splash. And then, silence. We must visualize the world beneath the Nile. It is murky, green, and brown. Light fades quickly as you go deeper. Down there, time stops. 3 months, the texts say. 3 months of holding breath, drifting in the cold currents, surrounded by the heavy silence of the deep. Horus and Set, suspended in the abyss, waiting for the other to break. But Isis, watching from the shore, could not bear the waiting. The mother's anxiety took over. She feared for her son in the darkness. She crafted a harpoon, tied to a rope of fibre. She threw it into the water. At first, she struck Horus by mistake. He cried out from the deep. She withdrew the weapon and threw it again. This time, it found Set. The bronze point pierced his thick hide. Set roared in pain, the bubbles of his cry rising to the surface. But then, something unexpected happened. Set called out to her. not as a rival, but as family. "I am your brother, Isis," he pleaded. "We are of the same blood." Isis paused. The bond of siblings, the memory of their shared origin, tugged at her heart. She wavered, and she chose mercy. She released Set. Horus rose from the water. He was not relieved. He was enraged. To see his enemy spared by his own mother was a betrayal he could not accept. He surged out of the river, like a storm himself, leaving Isis behind, leaving the court, retreating into the solitude of the desert. The trial was far from over. After the violence of the river, the war changed shape. Set realized that he could not defeat Horus with simple brute force. The boy was too resilient. So, Set turned to cunning. He laid down his weapons and extended a hand of friendship. He invited Horus to his own home for a feast. Let us imagine the scene. A palace in the desert. The air outside is cold, freezing under the vast, starry sky. But inside, it is warm. Torches flicker on the walls. Cups of wine are poured. It looks like peace. But in the world of the gods, peace is often just a mask for a new kind of war. Set's plan was not to kill Horus this time. His plan was to dominate him. In the ancient mindset, to assert power over another male was to claim the throne by nature. He wanted to humiliate the prince, to prove that Horus was weak, submissive, and unfit to rule. The night deepened. The sounds of the feast faded, and Set made his move in the darkness. But Horus was awake. He was the son of the great magician. He anticipated the trap. When Set attempted to assert his dominance, Horus did not yield. He caught the essence of Set's power in his hand. He did not let it touch his body. He escaped the palace and went to his mother, Isis. When she saw what he held, she knew the danger. This was not just physical matter. It was a curse, a stain on the king's legitimacy. Isis acted instantly. With her magic, she severed the contaminated hand, throwing it into the depths of the marsh, and conjured a new, pure hand for her son. The wound was sealed with light. The stain was washed away. Horus was whole again, but defense was not enough. Isis knew they had to strike back, not with a sword, but with the earth itself. Isis went to Set's garden. It was a lush green place filled with rows of lettuce. These were not ordinary plants. The lettuce was sacred to the god Min, tall, straight, and full of milky sap. It was Set's favourite food. He ate it every day to maintain his formidable strength. In the quiet of the morning, before the sun rose, Isis walked among the rows. The leaves were wet with dew. She took the essence of Horus, his own life force, and spread it onto the lettuce leaves. It disappeared into the green veins of the plants, waiting. Later that day, Set came to the garden. He was confident. He believed he had won the night before. He ate the lettuce, fresh and crisp, unaware that with every bite he was consuming the power of his rival. The trap was sprung. The hunter had become the vessel. The council gathered again. Set stood tall, arrogant, ready to claim his victory. "I have dominated him," he declared to the gods. "He is beneath me." The gods looked at Horus with doubt, but Horus remained silent, a faint smile on his lips. He asked Thoth, the arbiter, to call forth the truth. Thoth raised his hand. He called to the seed of Set. "Where are you?" A voice answered, not from Horus, but from the dark waters of the marsh, where the severed hand lay. Horus was clean. Then, Thoth called to the seed of Horus. "Where are you?" And then, a miracle happened. A voice answered, from within Set. A golden light began to shine from Set's forehead. The essence of Horus manifested, forming a golden disk, the symbol of the sun and royalty, right on top of Set's head. The hall fell silent. The symbolism was undeniable. Set, The chaotic storm was now crowning Horus, the rightful king. Even his own body had betrayed him to serve the order of Maat. Thoth took the golden disc and placed it as a crown upon his own head, marking the victory of strategy over brute force. Set was humiliated, the golden disc on his head, the laughter of the gods. It was too much. But he was the lord of the desert. He did not know how to quit. He demanded one final contest, a race on the Nile. But not with ordinary boats. "We shall race in ships made of stone," he declared. "Only a god worthy of the throne can make stone float." It was an absurd challenge, but Horus accepted. Set went to the mountains in the west. The texts tell us he carved a massive peak from the rock, a ship, solid, heavy, and real. He dragged it to the riverbank, the sand groaning under its weight. Horus, however, went to the cedar forests. He built a ship of strong, light pine, but he covered it with a thick layer of white gypsum plaster. To the eye, it looked like gleaming white stone. To the water, it was as light as a feather. Strategy, once again, walked ahead of strength. The day of the race arrived. The gods gathered on the banks. The water was calm. Set, with great pride, stepped onto his massive stone vessel. He pushed off from the shore. Imagine the sound, the heavy grind of stone against sand, and then the deep glug of the water. Physics is a law that even some gods cannot break. The moment the stone ship hit deep water, it sank, straight to the bottom, like a monolith returning to the earth. Horus's ship floated gracefully. The plaster shone in the sun. Set, dragging himself out of the mud, realized the deception. His rage broke the final seal. He transformed into a hippopotamus again, crashing through the water, destroying Horus's boat with his jaws. The race ended not in victory, but in chaos. The gods turned away. They were tired. The games were over. It was time for a higher authority. The council was deadlocked, so Thoth, the scribe, took a scroll of papyrus. He dipped his brush in black ink, and he wrote a letter, not to anyone living. He wrote to Osiris, the king of the dead, the lord of the west. The scroll was sealed, and it was sent, beyond the horizon, into the duat. We must imagine the silence that followed, waiting for a reply from the grave. And then, the messenger returned. Osiris had spoken. His words were read aloud in the hall, and the air grew cold. "Why do you wrong my son?" Osiris wrote. "I am the one who makes the barley grow. I am the one who feeds the gods and the cattle. Without me, the land would starve." But Ra, sitting on his high throne, was proud. He replied with a taunt. "Even if you did not exist, the barley would still grow." It was a dangerous thing to insult the Lord of Eternity. Osiris sent a second letter, and this time he did not speak of wheat. He spoke of fear. Listen to the weight of his words found in the ancient texts. "The land where I am is full of savage-faced messengers. They fear no god. If I give the order, they will come for your hearts. And remember this." The hall became deathly quiet. "You may rule the sky during the day, but eventually, every god, every man, and every star must set in the west. You all must come to me eventually, and there, I am the master." The threat was absolute. Ra, the creator, fell silent. The other gods looked at each other with wide eyes. They realized that while Set had strength and Horus had legitimacy, Osiris held the ultimate power, the power of the inevitable end. The debate was over. Fear had finally brought clarity. Horus must be king. The echo of Osiris's threat faded into the corners of the hall, but the fear remained. The gods knew that the boundary between the living and the dead must never be broken. Ra, the king of the gods, finally nodded. The long sun of his patience had set. Set was brought to the centre of the hall. For the first time in 80 years, the Lord of the Storm stood silent. He was bound, not by ropes, but by the collective will of the universe. He looked at Horus, and Horus looked at him. There was no anger left, only the exhaustion of a lifetime of war. The texts tell us that Set was forced to concede. "The throne belongs to the son of Osiris," he said. His voice, usually loud enough to shake the mountains, was now a whisper. The conflict was over. Legitimacy had won. But what becomes of chaos when order wins? Is it destroyed? No. In the wisdom of ancient Egypt, chaos can never be destroyed. It can only be integrated. Ra looked at Set. He saw the raw power, the violence, the strength that no other god possessed. And he spoke a judgment that was also a mercy. "You shall not rule the earth," Ra said, "but you shall rule the sky." Ra declared that Set would accompany him on the sun boat. Every night, when the sun travels through the darkness of the underworld, it is Set standing at the prow, fighting the great serpent Apophis, defending the light with his darkness. And to the people of the earth, Ra gave Set a new voice. "You shall be the thunder," he said. "When the people hear the storm rumble in the clouds, they will know it is you." So Set was lifted up, exiled from the throne, but given a place among the stars. A necessary monster, kept on a leash of light. The hall was cleared. Horus stood alone before the throne of his father. The priests brought the crowns. The white crown of the south, shaped like a lotus bud. The red crown of the north, with its curling wire. They were placed, one inside the other. The Shent, the double crown. As the weight of the crown settled on his head, the texts say, the earth rejoiced. Ma'at, the cosmic balance, returned to the land. The Nile breathed again. The floods returned with their rhythm. The fields turned green. Horus became the first living god, the archetype of every pharaoh that would follow for 3,000 years. He was no longer the hidden child in the swamp. He was the king, the uniter, the lord of the two lands. And so the story ends. But in Egypt, stories never truly end. They are circles. Every time a storm rises, it is Set. Every time the sun rises, it is Horus. Order and chaos, dancing together forever. We leave them there, frozen in the stone reliefs of the temple walls. Horus on the throne, calm and watchful. Set in the sky, wild and free. Both necessary, both divine. Now, let the image fade. Let the gold of the desert turn to the cool blue of the night. The trial is over. The judgment is past. The world is in balance, and you are safe. Rest now, in the quiet of the history. Good night.